Welcome, everyone, and welcome back if you have been to one of our webinars before. My name is Keith Spencer, and I'm one of our career experts here at FlexJobs, and I'm glad you all could join us for today's topic, which focuses on the ways that you can use AI or artificial intelligence tools, primarily ChatGPT, to maximize your job search efforts. While we're giving everyone a minute to get in and get settled, please feel free to share where you are joining us from today in the chat section. Also, if you're interested, the chat section can be a great place to share your own tips and suggestions with your fellow job seekers. So, for example, with today's topic, if you have already been using ChatGPT for a while now, and you would like to maybe suggest some prompts that you found to be particularly helpful, please feel free to share those with the rest of us in the chat section. Before we dive into our main topic today, I'm going to cover a couple housekeeping items. You certainly are welcome to take notes during the webinar if that is your preference, but this webinar is being recorded and a link to the video as well as some additional resources will be sent out to you within a week or so to the email address you used to register for today's event. Please note that this presentation has been pre-recorded, but the Q&A portion that will follow the presentation is going to be conducted live with one of our career experts. If you have a question that you'd like to ask, please put that question in the Q&A section of Big Marker rather than the chat section. This helps us keep track of questions in one place, and the Q&A section also allows you to click a thumbs up if someone else has asked a question that you would like to hear the answer to so that we can see which questions are the most popular. We probably won't be able to get to everyone's question today, but we can almost guarantee that you will learn something helpful. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Here is a quick overview of the topics we'll be covering today. We're going to start with an introduction to ChatGPT. You've likely heard of ChatGPT and other AI tools that are out there, but we'll provide sort of a basic overview of what ChatGPT is and what it does before looking at how you can leverage it to help with different aspects of your job search. We will then examine some methods of using ChatGPT to conduct research on different types of jobs, career fields, and companies, so that you can make sure you are fully informed during your search. Next, we'll go over some tips for using ChatGPT to enhance the quality of your application materials, meaning your resume and your cover letter. And then we'll close out the main portion of our discussion today by discussing some ways to use ChatGPT to effectively prepare yourself for interviews. Lastly, we will finish the webinar with our live audience Q&A portion with one of our career experts. So let's begin by going over some background information on ChatGPT, as well as some things to be aware of when you're using ChatGPT to support your job search. So ChatGPT, if you haven't heard much about it before, is an AI language model that was developed by an organization called OpenAI. A lot of other companies out there are working around the clock to develop and launch other AI tools, but currently ChatGPT is the most well-known and is also extremely user-friendly once you get the hang of it. So that will be our main focus of this webinar. And the GPT portion of ChatGPT's name means generative pre-trained transformer. And the pre-trained part of that refers to the fact that ChatGPT was essentially trained by being given massive amounts of text data to be able to understand the human language and respond to input from users. So using these massive amounts of text data, it responds to your prompts or questions by essentially predicting the most appropriate word to use next in a sequence. That's how it crafts its responses that it provides you. And that might sound a little complicated, but next we're going to break down what it's like actually using ChatGPT. So if you've never used any type of AI tool out there, it really can feel a bit strange at first. You're not talking to a human, you're interacting with artificial intelligence, but after a while, it really does kind of feel like you're talking to another human, just one that happens to have access to massive amounts of information. So interacting with ChatGPT is like having a text message conversation with someone. You can ask it questions or give it prompts, and then it will generate text in response responds to the input that you provided. So for example, you could ask ChatGPT a question like, what's a great recipe for chicken parmesan? Or give it a prompt like, explain to me the best method for growing tomatoes in my garden. It will then give you very useful information related to those topics. You can also ask follow-up questions to refine the results that you receive from ChatGPT. So with the growing tomatoes example, when I initially tried this, it explained the process, assuming that I was starting with seedlings that had already sprouted. If I wanted to, I could ask it to modify its explanation with growing tomatoes from seeds instead. That's one of the things that sets ChatGPT apart from search engines, is that it is going to remember your conversation up to that point. So, it's good to be specific with your requests, but if ChatGPT is missing the mark with what you're looking for, you can try asking some follow-up questions to get it to revise and improve the applicability of what you're asking for. And it can take some time to learn the best approaches to use in terms of prompts or questions to get the best results, but practicing with ChatGPT can be a lot of fun, and you can quickly learn a lot of interesting and relevant information. Now, a word of caution here. It is important to note that ChatGPT and other AI tools aren't without their flaws. So you want to be mindful of this when you're using them in your job search or for any other reason, really. So if, for example, I asked ChatGPT to write my resume or my cover letter from scratch, and I'm not specifically giving it source material to work with, it's going to create details about me that aren't accurate. So you want to be careful, and I recommend avoid using the exact text that it provides you. It's also worth noting that responses from ChatGPT will lack your personal style and tone of writing, which is particularly important to be mindful of when you're using it to help you write a cover letter or professional email, for example. The best course of action, the one that I recommend, is using ChatGPT as a starting point. Have AI do that sort of initial heavy lifting for you to help spark ideas of what you should write about, or help you refine and revise information you've already written yourself. But you always want to check the text that it provides for accuracy, and then edit the information to make sure your own style and tone is represented effectively. There's also a lot of debate going on right now about whether or not using the exact text from an AI tool would constitute plagiarism, since you didn't write it yourself. So again, it's best to just use it as your starting point or your idea generator, but then make sure you are revising, summarizing, paraphrasing, or expanding upon the text it provides in order to make it your own. Okay, so we will now discuss how you can use ChatGPT to conduct some preliminary research that can help you in kickstarting your job search efforts. Any good job search starts by doing some solid research. You want to make sure that you are well informed about the types of roles that you might be interested in and any companies that you are considering applying to. Research is especially important if you are thinking about making a career change or thinking about moving into a role that is different than the one you are currently doing. But it's also important to make sure that you have a clear understanding of the current type of work that you do as well, especially since our world of work is constantly changing and evolving. So ChatGPT can give you valuable insights into different types of roles, industries, and companies, which can help you speed along the initial research stage of your job search. If, for example, you're not sure what companies or roles might be good to target, ChatGPT can help you there, and I'll give you some examples on the next slide. You can also use ChatGPT to analyze your resume for you and pinpoint your own transferable skills. For example, you could say to ChatGPT, please outline the top 10 transferable skills that I possess based on this resume. Then you can hold the shift button, press enter, and skip down a line or two, and then paste your resume into the text box. Now, I will say I recommend omitting your name and contact information from, putting that into ChatGPT, and just provide it with the body of your resume. Another way that ChatGPT can help you is if you do have a specific type of role in mind, you can paste different types of job descriptions for that kind of role into ChatGPT and ask it to list out the top transferable and technical skills that you might need to be successful in that type of position. Both of these methods that I've described here are incredibly helpful in determining the skills you possess, which of those skills you should emphasize when you're applying for different types of jobs, and what types of jobs might be a good fit for you. So here are some sample questions or prompts that you can give ChatGPT when researching different roles, industries, and companies. So let's go through a couple of these here. With that first bullet point, maybe I want to get into a job as a recruiter, but I don't know a lot about what recruiters do. ChatGPT can provide me with a solid overview of that field. Or the third bullet point on our list here, maybe I've been working a predominantly in-person role for most of my career, but now I want to switch to remote. ChatGPT can suggest some roles that would allow me to work from home, but are still relevant or related to my previous career experience. Or that second to last bullet point, let's say I've been working as a teacher and I don't want to leave the teaching field or leave education, but I do want to work remotely. ChatGPT can give me a list of some companies that would hire potentially teachers for remote teaching roles. So your questions can be simple or more involved. And again, you can also ask follow-up questions after your initial prompt. For example, if I were to ask that question in the fourth bullet point about the transferable skills I possess from working in sales, I could then ask, based on these transferable skills, what are some other career fields that I could transition to? So using ChatGPT in this way can help improve and expand your thinking in terms of the direction in which you might want to go with your job search, and help you prepare to effectively market yourself for the roles that you do decide to pursue. So on the next couple slides, I'm going to give you a few sample questions and responses from using ChatGPT. It's helpful to show these in case some of you have never used ChatGPT before, just so that you have a better understanding of what your text exchange might look like. So for this example, I asked the simple question, what does a bookkeeper do? And ChatGPT gave me a solid answer that can provide a sound basis for me to begin my job search. You can see on the slide there that it started with sort of a general summary of what bookkeepers do. Then it listed out some of the top responsibilities of a bookkeeper. If that sounded interesting to me, I could then ask some follow-up questions to get it to expand more about different aspects of this description here. With this sample, I asked, what are the top skills needed to be an administrative assistant? ChatGPT responded again with a general overview, followed by the top 5 skills that I requested, including ways in which an administrative assistant might use those skills, which can be really helpful. I could also ask for the top 10, 15, or 20 skills, or have it focus specifically on soft skills or technical skills if I wanted to. So it could really break this down in a number of different ways. This type of question is helpful because it can give me a better sense of the types of skills and qualifications I should be emphasizing in my application materials in order to better present myself as a solid candidate for this type of role. And lastly here, I asked ChatGPT, what can you tell me about the company FlexJobs? ChatGPT again gave me a solid general overview of the company, but then it also provided more detailed information when I asked it follow-up questions about FlexJobs, which I did not have space to include on this slide. Doing this kind of research is important because companies don't want people who are just kind of throwing resumes into the wind and hoping they land on the right doorstep. They want applicants who understand their organization, its mission, the product or service that they provide, and they want people that want to contribute to the overall success of their company. Doing this type of research also helps you in determining if a company you are considering is the right fit for you. I definitely recommend doing a deeper dive into researching companies where you actually intend to apply, but this is a good starting point for you to begin that research. Okay, so preparing your application materials, this is one of the most time-consuming and often frustrating aspects of the job search process for many job seekers. But using ChatGPT can help you improve the quality of your materials and speed up the writing process for you by highlighting what topics to include and giving you examples of how you can write about your skills and experience. If you are using ChatGPT to help write your resume, there are definitely some things you want to be mindful of before you start. As a reminder, having ChatGPT write your entire resume from scratch is not advisable. Without giving it your current resume, ChatGPT isn't going to know what your experience is, and it's going to create inaccurate or false information about, your past job titles, companies you've worked for, skills that you possess, accomplishments that you've achieved. You want to make sure that you are giving it that source material to work with, your existing resume essentially, so that it has a better understanding of what your experience and skill sets look like. This will improve the accuracy of the information it provides you, but you still want to make sure that you are reviewing the information that it provides and editing that information as you go along. Along with providing your existing resume for source material, if you provide ChatGPT with a description of a job to which you want to apply, it can help tailor your resume to that specific role. Tailoring your resume for individual jobs is always a good idea. It allows you to present your skills and experience in a way that will be more relevant to your specific audience, the recruiter or the hiring manager. And it also can help you with applicant tracking systems that might be screening for keywords and phrases from the job posting that you will want to make sure are included in your resume. It might seem more time consuming, but I've found it personally more advantageous to work with ChatGPT going position by position on your resume, or even just a few bullet points at a time to get help with improving, your resume writing. This approach allows you to refine your results with follow-up prompts more easily, rather than trying to ask something like, could you revise that 17th bullet point you listed to better emphasize my ability to communicate? So, using smaller chunks, working in smaller samplings from your resume can actually make it easier for you in the long run. Here are some examples of prompts that you can use with ChatGPT to help write your resume. And I'll pause for a little while here so that you can read through these on your own. As mentioned before, and as is listed at the bottom of this slide, you always want to check it for accuracy with the responses that it provides. It's important to review and edit the responses, never just directly copy and paste. I know I probably sound like a broken record, but that's really, really important to keep in mind. ChatGPT will simply make up accomplishments or metrics to highlight in your resume, like fabricated percentages, in order to help you sound good. But you never want to lie on your resume or give inaccurate information. So using the exact text from ChatGPT can be really risky. Even though you need to be careful and review what ChatGPT provides you for accuracy, it is still helpful to use it in this way because it can give you some ideas of the types of metrics or accomplishments you might want to include. This is often a big challenge for job seekers, not really knowing what to quantify or what to highlight to demonstrate their past successes. So ChatGPT can give you some helpful ideas. Another limitation to keep in mind is that ChatGPT isn't able to format your resume in a way that is eye-catching or aesthetically pleasing. So you will still need to format your resume appropriately. Now, cover letter writing is often an even bigger challenge than resume writing for a lot of people, but ChatGPT can also help you here. Just like with your resume, you want to provide ChatGPT with some source material to get assistance with writing a cover letter, but you don't necessarily need to draft a cover letter to use as your source material. You can use your resume and a job description as your source material instead. Your current resume is, of course, helpful as you want to provide some detailed examples of your your skills and experience in your cover letter, but then it's also good to give it that job description as well, because you want your cover letter to be tailored to specific roles, just like your resume. Once ChatGPT creates your cover letter using these two sources, you can then review it and edit it to check for accuracy and inject your own style and tone of writing. Also, some additional tips for cover letters. It's helpful to provide ChatGPT with some parameters to work with, like a specific word count, somewhere in the range of 200 to 500 words. You want your cover letter to be only one page long and as concise as possible. So giving it some parameters is helpful. And then also, if there are some specific things that you want emphasized in your cover letter, like maybe things about you or the company that aren't included in your resume or the job description, it's a good idea to mention these kind of particulars to ChatGPT. Like, for example, with your cover letter, often in your introduction as kind of your hook, you want to mention what it is that you find really attractive about that role or about that company. And ChatGPT isn't going to know that. So you might want to either provide that information to ChatGPT or make sure that you are adding it in at a later time. So here are some solid examples of prompts that you could use to write a cover letter. And again, I'll give you some time to read through these prompts. So you'll notice that most of them, like I mentioned, include adding both your resume and the job description. The last example on this list, however, shows an approach that you could take if you wanted a more general cover letter based on a specific type of job that you could then tailor yourself for each application that you submit. But again, make sure you're reviewing the responses that you get from ChatGPT to make sure it doesn't include anything that's inaccurate. There might also be certain things that it glosses over or omits that you want to highlight more thoroughly. You can, of course, give ChatGPT some of those follow-up prompts to include more details about certain things, or just include them yourself as you edit the response it gives you. But again, the best practices are really just to use ChatGPT as like an idea generator, or in the case of cover letters, if you're suffering from some writer's block, it can help you kind of manage that and break through that. It can provide you some detailed samples that are more geared towards you and your experience and your positions of interest, rather than just searching for sample cover letters online. So using ChatGPT in this way can provide you with a great cover letter framework, which will help save you time and manage that writer's block that I mentioned. Okay, so now we'll finish up the main portion of our conversation today by discussing interview prep. Preparing for interviews is usually a bit stressful, but ChatGPT can help make your preparation more effective. So one of the biggest things to help prepare for a job interview is to review some common interview questions. It can help get your mind thinking along the right path. And ChatGPT can assist with common questions in a general sense. If you ask something like, what are the top 15 most common interview questions? But it can also get a bit more specific if you ask something along the lines of, what are some common interview questions for a data analyst position, as an example. If you want to go even further than that, you can provide ChatGPT with a job description for the role for which you are interviewing and ask, what are 15 questions I should be prepared to answer in a job interview based on this role? And then again, hold shift, press enter, skip down a line or two, and paste in that job description. Then once you have some sample questions, you can ask ChatGPT to provide you with some example responses for those questions. You can just ask, now provide me with example answers to each of these questions that you listed. Because remember, it's going to be able to reference back to the conversation that you've had up to that point. You can even go beyond that and provide ChatGPT with your resume and ask it to base the example responses to the questions on your specific experience and qualifications. Now, there are two important things to keep in mind in terms of preparing preparing for interviews in this way. First, there are no guarantees that you will be asked any of the questions that ChatGPT provides you in your actual interview. But again, it can help you get your mind thinking along the right path. But secondly, you don't want your answers in an interview to sound scripted or rehearsed. So, even though you are looking at some of these examples, thinking about the types of things that you want to say, maybe developing some talking points or some stories that you might want to tell from your past experience, you do want to make sure that your responses in an interview are not going to sound robotic, like you scripted and memorized them. But knowing these two things, you can still use ChatGPT to help you determine some of the topics that might come up in an interview and to spark ideas about things to discuss during an interview, which are both valuable aspects of interview preparation. So we could talk about ChatGPT for days. So there are obviously still a lot of things we didn't cover in this presentation, but some additional things to keep in mind include the fact that you can actually ask ChatGPT for tips on how to use it best. If you were to say something like, I would like some help writing a cover letter for a job as an accountant, what information should I give you, and what prompts do you recommend I use to get the best results? It'll then provide you with some options to help streamline your efforts. So you can actually, it's cool that you can actually use ChatGPT to learn how to use ChatGPT more effectively. You can also use ChatGPT for other aspects of your job search, like improving the quality of different areas of your LinkedIn profile, or for writing a highly tailored professional summary to begin your resume. Just remember to give it that source material to work with. The more you play around with ChatGPT, the easier it gets. You will learn what works well and what doesn't. Then you'll be able to refine your prompts and your requests over time to get better at using this AI language model. And remember that you can use it in a lot of different facets, not just the job search, but again, make sure that you are using it to enhance your work, not just do the work for you. Use it as a tool to make your own work better and make you more efficient with your time. So here are a few, reminders and action steps that you can take going forward after today's webinar. Number one, you can use ChatGPT to help improve your research and inform your job search plan. Number two, you can leverage ChatGPT to improve the quality of your application materials. Number three, ChatGPT is incredibly helpful at helping you prepare for upcoming interviews. And then number four, just a final reminder, remember to always edit and revise the responses that you get from ChatGPT in order to make it your own. So we will now go ahead and move into the Q&A portion of our webinar today. As a friendly reminder, a copy of this recording, as well as resources presented within the presentation, will be emailed out to you within a week or so to the email address you used to register for today's event. Do be sure to check your spam folder just in case it gets filtered there. For even more tips, tricks, and resources, I recommend going to the FlexJobs blog. You can see the URL there for the FlexJobs blog. It includes a vast amount of free articles, resources, webinars, and videos for members and non-members alike. We're going to go ahead now and open up to your questions. Please remember to type your questions in the Q&A area rather than the chat section so that we can keep track of questions in one place. And feel free to give a thumbs up to anyone else's question that you would like to see answered so we know which questions are the most popular. So thank you for being here, and let's open up to your questions. All right, folks, we are going to move into the Q&A portion of our webinar. Before we get started, could someone let me know in the chat section if you can hear me okay? All right, wonderful. Thank you very much. So my name is Keith Spencer, and I'm one of our career experts here at FlexJobs, and I will be answering your questions today. So let's go ahead and get started. Our first question here is asking, are recruiters getting savvy to individuals leveraging the software in job searches and able to detect if candidates are using it? Can it impact your application negatively? So that is a really good question. So a couple things here. Recruiters definitely are aware that people are using, AI resume writing services, ChatGPT, other AI tools, language models to help them in the job search process. That is one of the main reasons why, it was emphasized throughout the webinar to use it more as an idea generator to help you, kind of conquer your writer's block, but then to take the text that it provides it and make it your own. If you're just using the text from an AI tool, it's going to sound a little robotic. It's going to lack your style and tone. It's going to be easier for a recruiter to discern if it was, your writing versus the writing of a language model. So definitely recommend just using it as your idea generator, helping with that writer's block like I mentioned there. In terms of, technology, or software tools out there that are able to detect if you're using AI, that's something that is still emerging. We're seeing that, primarily be driven in academia, right? Like professors, teachers, folks that work in education, they don't want students, just using ChatGPT or other AI tools to do their homework for them. Companies are trying to develop tools that can determine if it was written by AI or not. They're still a long way from perfect, I'll say. So, these software tools that are being developed to detect if AI was used are not really very strong quite yet. I've read quite a few reports talking about how students have been accused of using AI when they did not actually use AI, replicated the assignment, and were able to do it themselves, without the help of AI. So these tools to detect it are a long way off, but recruiters do know that people are using it. I would argue that, smart recruiters aren't necessarily going to care if you're using it in the way that I describe, right? You're just using it to help you generate ideas, make sure you're focusing on the right things, but then making it your own work, because that's an example of someone using technology that's available to them to enhance their work, to make their own work better. So, if you are using it in that way, I would think that it is not going to negatively impact you. But if you're just using the exact text from an AI tool, or, the exact text from an AI resume writing service, perfectly fine to use those services, but then make sure that you're reviewing the information, you're injecting some of your own style and tone, you're checking for accuracy, you're incorporating things that, maybe it missed a little bit. Allow it to do that initial legwork for you, but then make it your own. I know I'm sounding like a broken record there, but if that's the strategy that you're employing, it's not going to have the likelihood of negatively impacting your application. So very good question there. That's still an emerging topic. A year or two from now, there might be software programs out there that can detect AI writing perfectly. It's really hard to tell right now, but at the moment, there aren't tools that are going to perfectly detect that. Recruiters can sort of have a gut feeling that it may have been written by AI. So making sure that you are making your own is going to increase your chances that, someone would not look down upon your application materials or think that you were sort of, cheating the system there, so to speak. But very good question. Thank you for asking that. Okay, so our next question here, how does the way ChatGPT looks at a resume compare to an applicant tracking system? How can ChatGPT help you to beat the applicant tracking system, or ATS? So ChatGPT and ATS are quite different. Applicant tracking systems are kind of screening resumes. They're looking for your qualifications, for your accomplishments. They're looking for keywords and phrases. ChatGPT is helping you, modify your writing, giving you ideas, giving you examples of different sort of language or writing that you could use. So they function differently there. So ChatGPT, the way that it could help you to improve your chances of being ranked highly within an applicant tracking system, There's no such thing really as like beating the ATS. You're not trying to game the system here. What you're trying to do is make your application materials relevant to that specific audience, meaning the recruiter or the hiring manager, and the applicant tracking system has been fed data by the recruiter or hiring manager for the types of things that they're looking for, essentially. So ChatGPT can help you identify some of the things that you should be focusing on for that specific audience if you are pasting in the job description for that role to which you are applying. So, if I were using ChatGPT to help with my resume or my cover letter for a specific job, I would paste in that job description and I would ask ChatGPT, based on this job description, what are, some keywords and phrases I should make sure to include in my application materials? Or based on this job description, what are the most important responsibilities and qualifications for this role? And then that will help kind of analyze the job description and kind of synthesize that information and just kind of save me some time. I can do that on my own. I can review that job description over and over again. I can comb through it. I can look for keywords and phrases, look for the things that seem to be really significant. And then I can also use ChatGPT to save me some time doing that, kind of maximize my efforts there. So that would be my recommendation for using ChatGPT to help you with applicant tracking systems. Now, that being said, ChatGPT does not have that insight into the recruiter or the hiring manager. It doesn't know what data or information has been programmed into the ATS that the recruiter or hiring manager is looking for. So it is kind of guessing a little bit there, just like we are guessing when we're trying to tailor for a specific role. So do keep that in mind. I do recommend kind of doing both of those approaches. Review it yourself, look for the important things. Also ask ChatGPT, make sure you're not missing anything. It might point out some stuff that you perhaps overlooked, so to speak, but don't rely on it solely. You want to kind of combine your efforts there. Use it as your assistant, not as your replacement, so to speak. But very good question there, and I appreciate you asking that. Okay. Oh, another good question here. So, how do you prevent ChatGPT from ingesting your personal information? Is there a clear opportunity, or will I forever live in the ChatGPT cosmos? I like the way that you phrased this question. So, really good question there. With a lot of these AI tools, there's a lot of sort of murkiness or gray area about what it's doing with the data that users are providing it. That's why in the webinar, it was suggested that you omit your name, you omit your contact information. I personally never put in any, specific personal information about myself when I'm using ChatGPT. I will just use, sort of the bulk text of my resume, my summary, my key skills, my descriptions of my past jobs. If you even wanted to go beyond that, you could change the names of the companies that you've worked for and omit the date ranges, because in theory that data could kind of narrow down who this text belongs to, so to speak. So I would just be careful with what you are putting into any type of AI tool. Leave out your personal information. Like I said, you could go above that, remove company names, just include your job title, and maybe put like XYZ company or something. You could remove the date ranges as well. So definitely smart to err on the side of caution there, especially since it's a little unclear at the moment, where that data is being housed, what it's being used for. So if you are, wanting to protect yourself, protect your personal information, I do recommend not putting that into different AI tools. Very good question there, and it is important to stay safe. So I'm glad that you asked that. Okay. Okay, so here's another good question. If you want to apply for a job and you're hoping to reach out directly to hiring managers of that company, can ChatGPT accurately provide the names and or contact info of that person if it was publicly shared online, like if the hiring manager has a public profile on LinkedIn? So somebody else pointed out in a question a little bit lower below that I'll kind of borrow from this question. The free version of ChatGPT only accesses web web data to a specific date in 2021. I believe it was November of 2021. So no, it is not going to be able to pull that information for you. Or if it does pull that information, chances are it could be inaccurate because it's almost 2 years old at this point. So you do want to do that digging yourself. But you in your question point out a great way to do that. Go to that company's profile on LinkedIn and look to see if you can find someone who is listed as a hiring manager, listed as a recruiter. Maybe the job description mentions that this role reports to a specific specific job title or a specific team. You could see if you could try to find that person's title on LinkedIn. So that is a good way to try to follow up with a recruiter or a hiring manager, kind of scouring their company LinkedIn profile to see if you can't find somebody who is maybe in charge of that role. Or, I also recommend, if you're trying to do that kind of follow up after an application, say you can't find the recruiter or hiring manager, you could look to see if there is someone in talent acquisition, someone in human resources that you could maybe reach out to and say, like, hey, I recently applied for this role. I'm very interested because, and then, kind of give them a concise example of why you're interested in that company or organization, and how your skills align. And, you could ask, is there someone I could contact to inquire about the status of the hiring process or something like that. So you're not necessarily going to be able to find that information through ChatGPT. As was pointed out in that other question that I referenced, that I'm hoping we'll have time to get to, there are other AI tools out there. There are, if you purchase the ChatGPT Plus version of ChatGPT, you can get different plugins to use it in conjunction with different applications. There is, Bing has a AI chatbot that is out now. I saw someone mention Google Bard at some point. I forget if it was in the Q&A or in the chat section, but there are different tools out there that do have access to current information on the internet. So it is possible. I haven't done a lot of hands-on research with those tools. I've just read a lot of articles about different tools at this point. We'll probably, have a webinar coming out in the future that is focused on other AI tools as well. But you could try doing that with other AI tools. But for the time being, that approach on, searching LinkedIn is my best advice there. But very good question. Um, Okay, so similar question here. Can ChatGPT help you narrow down your search to jobs that pay a specified amount? So it can give you salary information, but again, it's going to be potentially a couple of years out of date. My best recommendation with there's a lot of different salary tools out there that you could use instead. There's Glassdoor.com. You can find reviews from current and former employees about different companies. You can find salary ranges on there. There's also salary.com, payscale.com, quite a few others, but those are the most popular ones. Those can help you narrow down the salary ranges for different types of jobs. So if you see, a certain type of job pays a salary range and that looks good to you, you could focus your search on that type of job. You could also target specific companies that you have found from your research that pay a salary range that is within your expectations or your desire there. So that would be sort of your best bet there. So ChatGPT can give you some salary information, but do be careful because it could be outdated. Good question though. Um, Easy question here. How do you access ChatGPT? You can just go to chat.openai.com and then you'll be able to access ChatGPT. You're able to sign up for an account with an email address, and then you will be able to get started in there. So thank you for asking that. I don't know why I didn't include that in the presentation. So thank you for asking that. Okay, so we're getting to the question that I referenced to a few times already. So this person mentioned how the free version of ChatGPT famously only accesses web data up to a specific date, although it does support a history of separate chats per user. So what this person, I believe, is referring to, if you're using ChatGPT, you'll see in the bar on the left, it's going to save all the chats that you had. So you can go back to those chats. I've done that. It's very helpful. I might have have a really good conversation with it. A couple days later, I want to go back and review that information. So that's really helpful. The getting back to this question, so they're talking about how the Bing AI chatbot does access current data that's out there on the internet. It does use ChatGPT. Microsoft, which runs Bing, has invested a lot of money in OpenAI, so they work together. But does it? Let's see. Does it allow storage of separate employment threads? So what I'm assuming you're asking here is, does the Bing AI operate like ChatGPT does, where it saves your previous chats in a bar on the side or something like that? So, like I said, I have not had hands-on experience using the Bing AI chatbot, so I cannot tell you definitively yes that it does that. I do know that you're allowed to have separate chats, so I'm assuming it probably does. But if it doesn't, I do know for certain that you are able to export your chats. So again, if you've had a really good conversation with the Bing AI chatbot, you want to save that information so you can refer back to it later. You're able to export that into a PDF and then save it on your desktop. So even if it doesn't automatically save the chats that you've had like ChatGPT does, you could save your conversations on your desktop so that you can refer back to them later. So very good question there. And I would imagine, because ChatGPT has been so successful and is so popular, I would imagine that a lot of these language models, these chatbots, these AI tools are going to, kind of model their framework, their user interface similarly, especially, trying to capture the aspects of them that users tend to really like. So I would not be surprised if it does save that information, but I can't speak definitively, excuse me, because I have not used the Bing AI chatbot personally. So sorry, I can't give you a more comprehensive answer there, but hopefully there was some information there that could be helpful. Okay. Okay, so this question, kind of similar answer to what we've referred to previously about how ChatGPT only accesses web data up to a certain point, the free version, I should say. This person's a career counselor. They're interested in adapting this tool for their clients. Does ChatGPT gather its career data from federal or state databases? How and where does it gather its information for responding to job seekers? So the information that ChatGPT was trained on was essentially just a wealth of information that was available on the internet during that time that it was being trained in 2021. So yes, it's going to have that information from different, accessible federal and state databases, different job boards, job postings, things like that. But again, that information could potentially be a little bit outdated. So you do want to use it as an addition to your own efforts when you are researching information about different jobs and trying to find good ideas for things to include. Now, with some industries, like some of the examples that were given in the webinar, a lot of that information doesn't change rapidly. It does change over time. Different responsibilities, different technical skills or tools that might be used, stuff like that. Does change over time. But because we are a year and a half out, some jobs you will see not a lot of difference or outdated information. Other jobs you might see some outdated information, like the impact of AI on programming and web development and app development, things like that. That has already changed a lot in the last year and a half. So it might not give you 100% accurate information there. So you do want to do some cross referencing. Make sure again that you're using it in addition to your own efforts there. But very good question. I think as long as you are emphasizing this to the people that you're working with, telling them to kind of verify, check, modify the information they're given, stuff like that. Some of the advice that I've given out in this Q&A and during the webinar as well. You should be able to adapt or adopt that tool pretty easily. But good question there. Okay, so we are a couple minutes over our time here. I know we still have quite a few questions to get to. I do apologize we couldn't get to everyone's question today. We do at 2 p.m. Eastern today. We do have a career expert Q&A that I will be conducting. So if you wanted to hop into that webinar, it's 30 minutes long, where you can just ask all sorts of questions about the job search process. You could ask questions about ChatGPT and AI in there if you were interested. If we didn't get to your question today, today, I welcome you to join us for that webinar. But I really do appreciate you all being here today. I hope this information was helpful for you, and I appreciate that you took the time to join us. But thank you. I apologize again, we couldn't get to everyone's question, but I do appreciate you being here, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Take care.